Hey friends, welcome to my game room. Looking through the game shelves here, I wanted to prepare a particular video here about a game that I have called Dominique. This one's been in the family for a long time, and remember having a good time playing this with my kids back in the day. And as I am wont to do, I started to do some research into the genealogy of the game. Where did it come from? What was its evolution? And how successful really was it? And I found a fascinating story. Now, in the 1970s in California, there was a teacher, an award-winning teacher, as a matter of fact, named Ken Rand, and he would create little games for his classroom. Not unusual for a teacher to do that. But he got a lot of good compliments from this and decided, well, maybe they've got something here. I'll spend a little bit of time and make these into a commercially viable version of these little games. The first one that he published was this one, Dominique, and that was in 1979, and he pitched it himself, as most burgeoning game designers will do, and caught the attention of major retailers. And I'm talking major retailers like Macy's, JCPenney, Sears, Toys R Us, etc. It was a smashing success. In the first year, over 50,000 units were sold, and that's a pretty good start for a new game designer. He followed that up in 1980 with a game called Dado, and Dado also caught on and was very successful. Dado was picked up by Brio in Germany, and they changed the theme of the game to Shanghai Rummy. Meanwhile, Dominique was still selling pretty well, and it also was picked up in Germany by a company that most of us are familiar with called Ravensburger. They changed the name in Europe to Domingo, also Domicolor, depending on the market that they're addressing, and that was very successful too. Ravensburger translated the game into at least a dozen different languages, and then in 1984 it was nominated for the prestigious Spiel des Jahres in Germany, the Game of the Year. It did not win that award, but just to be nominated is quite an honor for sure. It came out in several different editions, slightly different pieces, different packaging. This particular one was by Great Games, incorporated in 1980, so it's a fairly early one. But I think it's a very nice little tactical game. A lot of decisions you can make with these little tiles that you hold as the board evolves. So why don't you take a look here at some of the fundamental parts of the rules. There are 44 tiles cut to a 1:3 proportion, each with 3 colored circles on them. They're all unique, mostly with 3 colors, but some of them are a single color. The objective is quite familiar, to form rows of 3 or more colored circles. An orthogonal row of 3 scores 3 points. A diagonal row of 3 scores 6 points. Be sure to have your set of scoreboards handy to keep track as you play. Each player starts with a hand of 3 tiles drawn from the shuffled face-down boneyard. Then each in turn plays 1 tile aligned to either side of an already played tile, and the score, if any, is tallied on each turn. A pair of matching circles does not score. 3 in a row scores 3 points. And 4 or more in an orthogonal row will score 1 point per matching circle connected in that row. So you can build upon rows of a single color already placed and scored earlier. Long rows are desirable, but hard to build with more than 2 players influencing the arrangement on the table. The active player then draws a new tile to their hand, signaling the end of their turn. This play one, draw one process goes on around the table as you would expect. You will find a familiar domino-like feel to the game as the row of tiles grows. Eventually this row will reach a total of 11 tiles. Once that happens, the players begin a new row, and play proceeds as before. Eventually the boneyard will be clear, and players continue the last few rounds with whatever tiles they have in their hands. 4 rows will be completed when all 44 tiles are played, and the game is done. The player with the highest score wins the game. That's about it. There's Very brief rules, but a lot of variations that you can encounter while you play the game. Here's the game in progress here. We're doing fairly well. We got the first row completed, working on the second row now, and the scores are beginning to mount. Now, sometimes as the game goes on, it becomes pretty obvious who the front runner is, and you can kind of watch how they form different pairs and sort of anticipate what direction they might be heading, and you have the opportunity to foil some of those plans. And so that adds a nice little strategic aspect to the game as you play. And with similar games like this, it sort of mitigates that runaway winner situation if the other players are watching carefully and rely on each other to reinforce their efforts. Now, some of those European versions of the game actually have 48 tiles in them instead of 44. Not quite sure where that was coming from because the rules were still the same. So I think it just kind of broke up the possibilities of what was actually in the boneyard. But it doesn't seem like that would make a significant difference. So it may have been a manufacturing decision more than a game design decision. I'm not sure. Despite the early success of Dominique, you don't see it played very much anymore. It still can be found occasionally in thrift stores or on eBay and trading sites like that. But it's still a very good game, and I would guess that it's a pretty good candidate for a print and play type version. And I think it wouldn't be too hard to come up with sort of a solo version to see how high a score kind of a thing you can get, or maybe a version with a dummy player to make it more interesting. But if it does drift into your radar, I would definitely say, pick it up and give it a play. I think it's a good little filler to start the evening. Now, another one of Ken Rand's successes was a little book that he wrote called Afterwards. It was a collection of word games. And one of the games in that book, called Wordo, is remarkably similar to a game called Wordle that seems to be pretty popular with millions of players every day. Coincidence? Probably. So whether you play Dominique or any of the other variations here, in fact, whatever you play, be sure to play every day.